For years, I have had a quest to uncover an anime film fossilized deep into the sediment of my memories, just poking out to leave a small portion of the full picture exposed. Among a handful of vague scenes, one stands out. In the climax, the main character is on a train flying through the sky, full of strange creatures, ghosts, or demons. As luck would have it, anime has a bit of a thing for flying trains, it seems. And so, while I have thus far been unsuccessful in finding this film from my past, I have ended up watching some rather interesting ones in the present. When I watched one such film, Night on the Galactic Railroad, I was surprisingly reminded of one of my favorite films, Angel's Egg. While anime comparisons can often feel arbitrary or beyond the point, the parallels to Angel's Egg that arose as I watched this obscure title really gave me a deeper appreciation of it during my viewing, and served to make it a more interesting experience overall. These two 1985 anime have a number of striking tonal and stylistic similarities, from the long periods of silence to the interspersed Christian iconography. They have a somewhat similar structure as well. We get a very uncomfortable feeling introduction to the main characters and their worlds, complete with eerie and gorgeous music, before the entrance of something that radically diverges from the main characters' normal lives. The soldier in the case of Angel's Egg, and the train in the case of Night on the Galactic Railroad. Throughout Angel's Egg, and beginning with the train's entrance in Night on the Galactic Railroad, each of these films presents a series of vignettes that seem to be attempting to communicate individual messages that tie into the larger themes of the films as a whole. In Night on the Galactic Railroad, these splits are more obvious, being marked by transitional title slides, but I believe that the girl waking up and heading to the lake, her walking through the town, the whalers, she and the soldier walking through her bottle collection, the scene in her bedroom, etc., are all separated by obvious enough cinematic cues, and have enough of a unique set of motifs and symbols to seem distinct from each other as well. What really struck me was how cryptic Night on the Galactic Railroad's individual vignettes were, in spite of the simplicity it possesses in many regards. Whether it was due to being heavily abstract, like in the case of the birdcatcher, or presenting a very strange moral case, such as that made by the children's caretaker. I struggled to determine the meanings of a number of these scenes initially. In the case of the latter, the film's Christian imagery probably contributed to my confusion. The woman ends up refusing to save the children's lives in service of their well-being according to a Christian worldview, which to me was a twisted value judgment. It seemed almost parodical, a critique of the blind faith that would fuel such a decision. However, the film also seemed to be expressing Christian ideals to an extent that made me seriously doubt that she was meant to be criticized as an example of religious devotion gone too far. As esoteric as some of its vignettes were, though, Night on the Galactic Railroad's actual message is still far more clear than Angel's Egg's by the end, since the former chooses to explicitly explain it. It is about the virtue of the Judeo-Christian idea of self-sacrifice, which clears up my confusion about the caretaker. We are indeed supposed to take this child murderer through in action as a religious role model. And this is, to be clear, not a negative for the film. Philosophical objectionability does not inherently turn me off from a film, and in the case of Galactic Railroad, its philosophy is intriguing enough to get my interest. Knowing that Night on the Galactic Railroad was based upon a classic Japanese novel, from the same author as the novel that Isao Takahata's film Gouch the Cellist was based on incidentally, going into my viewing meant it was easy for me to view its vignettes as chapters building towards a thematic end goal. Perhaps the titles of each scene were literally chapter titles taken right from the book itself. Mamoru Oshii, director of Angel's Egg, has been quoted as saying that not even he understands the exact meaning and theme of the film, as he was at a difficult point in his life at the time of its production. I think that this openness to interpretation works in its favor, however, since the film has more staying power as a point of thought and discussion than Night on the Galactic Railroad, which, while being a beautiful film, leaves little room for interpretation when it comes to its thematic message, having made sure to make that clear for its targeted child audience. Let's use that beauty as another point of comparison between the two films. While I found both of them to be impressive, Night on the Galactic Railroad can't compete with the raw artistic talent that Angel's Egg's production brought to the table. With Mamoru Oshii of Ghost in the Shell and Patlabor fame directing, the character designer for franchises such as Final Fantasy and Vampire Hunter D, Yoshitaka Amano, doing what he does best, one of the most prolific and distinctive art directors in anime, Shichiro Kobayashi, doing some of the most impressive impressive work of his career, and composer Yoshihiro Kano breaking away from his usual work on ballets and orchestral pieces to provide one of only 2 anime soundtracks he's composed. Angel's Egg is brimming with talent. Heck, beyond these upper-level positions, there are more industry superstars to be found. The man behind what may very well be the most iconic character designs in anime. Evangelion's Yoshiyuki Sadamoto provided key animation for the film, as did Shinji Otsuka, who has worked on a number of films by 2 of the medium's greatest directors, Hayao Miyazaki and the late Satoshi Kon. Gisaburo Sugi has directed a handful of solid anime outside of Night on the Galactic Railroad, but nothing of particular note. Koichi Mashimo, notable industry eccentric who later went on to form Studio B-Train, and, as his directorial work on iCity demonstrates, quite capable of producing insane imagery, provided storyboards for Night on the Galactic Railroad. As solid as this staff is, the film does have much more limitations. Night on the Galactic Railroad has some moments of stunning imagery when it counts, the first train stop in particular comes to mind, but generally we get a lot of fairly minimal character animation, and the fact that much of the film takes place in the same train car probably eased the burden of the background artists. Even the decision to make the bulk of the characters into anthropomorphic cats, something not present in the original novel, was apparently made in order to simplify the character animation. While much of the soundtrack is not too noteworthy, the main theme is suitably haunting, and the usage of the Hallelujah chorus is excellent as well. On one hand, we have an audiovisual masterpiece chock full of talent that provides a highly thought-provoking but thematically vague experience, and on the other, we have a well-made adaptation of a beloved novel that employs intriguing and oftentimes esoteric vignettes in the service of what becomes a clear moral message, doing the best it can with limited resources. The former film is the brainchild of many talented collaborators, the latter a retelling of an old tale to introduce it to a potentially new audience. Both end up being excellent tone pieces that are sure to stimulate some philosophical thought, even if only one of them really has that much staying power. That said, if you do enjoy Angel's Egg and anime in that vein, Night on the Galactic Railroad captures much of that appeal, so it is certainly worth checking out, if only to have a pretty neat obscure classic to add to your watched list. Another neat thing to add to your watched list would be my video on Sakura Quest that I put out a few days ago, exactly when YouTube sub boxes broke for like half a day. If you missed that one because of those issues, you can find it linked in the description. After reassessing things, the Patreon support I need to reach to fund working on my own content full-time has dropped, meaning I'm getting ever closer to that goal. So a huge thank you to Carkeys, Skylar Morrow, Naruto64, Magic Dragon, Mackenzie Knowles, Keiko Cat, Christian Emery, Presto Puma, Laugher Style, Omi Fomi, Garbage Burner, Marcus Gand, Sam Velociraptor, Tyler aka Gigs, Shoko Asahara, Lord Liquid Bacon II, Izumi69, Kieran Rice, Valkion, Teencho37, Taktoa, Cherry Boy Writer, MathWiz97, Joji Matthews, Culver James Kamai, Shafty, Zaros Tenjin, Saiker, Zeria, Sakamoto Mio, Darian De Sotel, Joaquim Alfelt, Capsize, Mick Coolman, and all my other patrons for contributing to that aspiration already.